This episode is brought to you by Llama Wood. Llama Wood is building a bridge between premium firewood and your fireplace by making it super easy to get bulk firewood delivered right to your wood pile. I became excited enough about this company that I've been an early advisor to them since before they were founded in 2020. Their intuitive online firewood delivery marketplace provides an easy way to burn more fires because you get access to highly vetted suppliers all across Virginia. Each are ready to deliver premium seasoned and kiln-dried firewood right to your woodpile with a 100% money-back guarantee. That's risk-free firewood delivery, folks. You got to try it. Llama Wood also lets you easily subscribe to weekly deliveries, earn rewards every time you shop, and they even sell log racks that they will fill up with wood for you. They are truly a one-stop shop for enjoying life around the fire and keeping your woodpile tidy. For a limited time, Learning to Dad listeners, that's you guys, can get $50 off when you place your first order. Book your wood delivery today at llamawood.com and use code L2D at checkout. Again, that's L2D at checkout at llamawood.com to save $50 off your first order.
First off, I love my kids.
This is Learning to Dad.
I'm the cool dad. That's my thing.
With Tyler Ross.
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills.
I'm gonna have fun, and you're gonna have fun.
Michael Geus, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, Tyler. How are you?
Oh, I'm great. I appreciate you taking the time to spend with me today. We were introduced by a mutual friend, namely because of Drink Hero, your coffee company. And I know you've been involved with, or you started Leatherback Gear, which I'm excited to talk to you about, Secret Service career. You bounced around, you got a slew of brothers and you're raising two girls. So we got all kinds of contrasts and different things to go over. So I'm pumped to talk with you, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so I thought this is unusual for me to know exactly what my first question that I'm going to ask, but I know exactly what it is. So knowing that you've been in the Secret Service, and that is we'll talk about all the different things Secret Service people do, because it's not just, the black suit, black tie, and looking really cool, looking around at stuff. There's a lot that goes on that you've done.
Emphasis on the looking cool part. Appreciate that.
Right, and then you've been and have been before and after the entrepreneur. So, can you talk to me about the difference or the similarities when it comes to trusting your partners in both of those scenarios, as an entrepreneur and as a Secret Service agent?
Yeah, great question, man. I feel like you put some thought into that one.
Did.
Yeah, so I tell people that the Secret Service is probably the best training you're ever going to get to be an entrepreneur. And why is that? Life's on the line. It's life and death. I mean, those are the two boxes you kind of operate out of and in. You have a week to move the president. Hey, we're going to go to wherever it is. Pick a city, pick a country, pick a state, something. And you get 5 to 7 days to build the advance. You got to get on the ground, make contact, figure out where you're going, who's involved, get everything orchestrated on meetings every night, all day long. And we start with an idea, much like an entrepreneur does. We're going somewhere, and then we assemble a team and we formulate a plan and we iron out stuff, and there's adversity and challenges, and things work and then things don't work. And then invariably on game day, here comes the man, and 5 minutes out, everything falls apart and you're the guy. Like it or not, you're the guy. So you got to fix it, and you got to do it fluidly. You got to be in the moment. And it's high stakes stuff. Entrepreneurship, depending on the level of the game you want to play, is very similar to that, where you bring on investors. You got a concept, you're raising capital or not, you're building a business and putting it on e-commerce or brick and mortar, whatever. Idea, team, rock and roll, let's build a plan, ups and downs, adversities, challenges, successes, and then things fall apart. And then what? So you either crumble and, hey, I don't have an answer, which is never the answer for a Secret Service agent. Mm-hmm. Or in entrepreneurship, I don't have an answer. Doesn't work that way. We've got two boxes. We're alive or we're dead. a CEO and an entrepreneur. I'm alive, I'm dead. I mean, it's the best training you're ever going to get.
So to I assume I'm making assumptions because I'm not familiar with the industry, and that's part of why I'm excited to talk to you about it. But when it comes to being an entrepreneur, you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your friend's nose. Like you can say yes to investors and you can say no to investors. In the Secret Service, I imagine that kind of autonomy isn't quite as right. So your partner's relationship has got to be different. Is that right?
Yeah. So, you're kind of assembled a team in the service that if you're the main guy that's responsible, and there's various levels to this, Tyler. So you're the head guy, or you're responsible for a site or a motorcade route. You own that motorcade route, even though somebody you answer to, you're the guy or the gal, it doesn't matter. In entrepreneurship, it's very similar, except to your point, I get to pick who comes in. The problem for most entrepreneurs is that you're guessing a lot with the team. You just don't know. In the Secret Service, there's a camaraderie and an esprit de corps that's kind of built over time, and a group that you get used to. And then what happens is you start to learn the strengths and weaknesses of everybody. And so when you're elevated to be responsible, well, I can maneuver, and I know I got to fill this hole because they're dynamite at this thing, but they're not at this thing. Or, hey, they're awful at this, but they're like, you can kind of bob and weave. But what you can't do is just 86, you're out the door. And in private world entrepreneurship, we spend a lot of time guessing on the hires and the bringing in investors. Do they feel right? Are they the right fit? Can they bring the right stuff? But ultimately, when you get into it and you either know they're a fit or they're not a fit. And you got to make a decision. Do I keep you or do I not? Do I find a hole that you can fill? But now as shareholders come on, I've got bosses. I'm not just the entrepreneur and the guy that runs the show, but I've got people I'm accountable to. So it's back to this hierarchy structure. And so not everybody downhill understands what's going on uphill, and everybody uphill doesn't understand what's going on here. And it's my job to weave it all out and make sure that we maneuver safe and effectively.
So as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as someone leading a business, you have kind of created a relationship with your client, your investors, your product, and one that is mutual. You love it, it loves you back, and you go that way. In Secret Service, I imagine you protect some people you like or align with, and some people that you don't. Can you speak to that difference at all in the way you approach your job?
Yeah. So as a Secret Service agent, politics are everywhere, private citizen, entrepreneur, Secret Service agent. The difference here is that as a Secret Service agent, the job is the job, the mission is the mission. And who we protect is arbitrary to what we protect. So in other words, take the President of the United States. Love or hate, doesn't matter. It's the office of what we protect. And so long as that person stays alive, as a Secret Service agent, you play a game every day, and the only game you play is a 24-hour clock. And as long as that person's alive, a job well done. And it goes in the rearview mirror, and tomorrow we play another game. The clock starts over. In entrepreneurship, it's sort of similar in that we're playing a long game, but there's a lot of stuff that becomes very problematic and fun when you're in the tunnel here and you're grinding your way through and looking for capital, or looking for revenue increasing, or getting patents, or assembling the right team. Do I have the right investors here? Do I not? And I've lived through all the ups and downs of having the wrong ones and the right ones. So it's just been an interesting ride. It's a phenomenal correlation that I don't know that I've ever seen explored between Secret Service world and entrepreneurship. I mean, they're very, very symbiotic and very interesting. The stress and the rigor of it is very similar. Somebody told me the other day, it's like you've heard of dog years to human years. Like one human is seven dog years.
Yeah.
Well, then you can add on top of that, that's like 30 entrepreneur years or Secret Service years, because it's literally in the service. I mean, you can work an 18-hour day, 7 days a week, just grinding, making sure the site's ironed out, everything's efficient and effective to make sure you provide the safest environment possible for that protectee. And in entrepreneurship, you can work an 18, 24-hour day, 7 days a week, week in, week out, making sure that everything's humming and growing, because that's the job. You got to scale.
So as an entrepreneur, having personally had partners, some have been wonderful, some have been not so great. I feel like when you're going through a deal, when you're facing down the barrel of losing money, you learn an awful lot about a person and their values and the things that are important to them. Those stresses and anxieties are kind of, in my experience, the worst they get. You learn about somebody and you stay with them or move on. What are some of the experiences in Secret Service that create those same anxieties to say, this is a good relationship and we're going to work well? Like, what's the pressure? Is it a moment? Is it like where, you go through a basic training or a buds type thing? Or like, how do you establish a relationship and fight through the burdens of them?
Yeah, interesting question, Tyler. That's a very complex question, and there's a lot of layers to it. So, I mean, everything from the academy to the real world that you get training and practical experience, on the job stuff of successes and failures. The one thing the service cannot have is a failure of mission and protection. I mean, you can't. So it's what we would call a zero fail mission. Entrepreneurship, you want to believe you're at a zero fail mission, and that's a micro macro conversation. The service, there's a lot of relationship stuff that's built in because you got to be very diplomatic and effective wherever you go in the country, state to state, city to city, nation to nation, to affect the same core mission with a lot of different personalities, cultures, temperaments, all of their policies, everything, and yet your job takes priority. But everybody's somebody everywhere you go, and so you got to really learn how to navigate getting what you need done, and still not pissing somebody off, because at any one point a chief of police goes, "Okay, we're done," or something to that effect, and now you got to scramble and figure out, now what? Now how do I fix this? And so it's the best training ground in the world, all the way from the academy through 12 years on the job when I left. I was very, very fortunate. Had the honor of a lifetime and a career of a lifetime in that 12 years, from being selected to run around the country on various campaigns to making it all the way to presidential protection with President Trump when I left. It's just the coolest thing you'll ever do in your life. And then for me, stepping away wasn't any more stressful to me when I left to do what I'm doing than what I was doing, where nobody's pointing a gun at me today, or somebody's life's not on the line. And then I got out here and started doing what I was doing and learned actually it's kind of is. So it's just an interesting comparison.
Yeah. Yeah. So a little tangential with all of your travels all over the country as a result of being in the Secret Service. And I use this with stand-up comedians because they travel and see so many different kinds of people. It
Sure.
informs their perspective in such a big way. Like, what are some of the things that you learned in your travel, seeing so much of America and interacting with so many different types of people? Like, what are some of your observations about our country?
I think people are people, and people are good people. I'll tell you, some of the most patriotic things I've ever seen was driving in motorcades at 20 miles an hour, slow through main streets in Middletown, USA, like in Ohio, Iowa. I mean, some of these major states in the beginning of these campaigns, and you've got little kids, the moms and dads out there waving flags, just waving as the motorcade rolls by, as somebody like Paul Ryan back in the day, to Mitt Romney, to Obama, to Trump, like you name it. That was consistent all the time. And I saw that more than I didn't see that in those campaigns. And so I think America is a place of hope and passion, and you see it no matter what, on whichever side of the world you want to look at and which lens. It's hope and passion. One of the most takeaway moments that I could give you, as far as a lesson, not moments, but a lesson, a takeaway lesson, is that when it came down to the Secret Service and how we affect protection, and how I've learned to correlate that into entrepreneurship, is what I would call the magic's in the movement. And so America is an engine that moves, right? Secret Service is an engine that moves, and we move people, places, and things all the time to keep them safe. And even a human body, you move, you feel better. Ideas and entrepreneurship, the magic's in the movement. And I don't know how that came to me, other than being on the move with the service all the time, is I just saw so much magic as we would correlate around the country, that there's passion and hope, and the magic's in the movement.
I like that a lot. I've always had a mantra of kind of grow or die. But I guess
Yeah.
growth sometimes involves just turning the butter into cream and just keep moving.
But it's movement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's movement. No matter, take an old door with the hinges. You start to move them, they creak. Oh God, oh God, you know. But once you start doing it, it gets to move and it starts to open again.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's just a mantra of mine, that the magic's in the movement. So even getting stuck in entrepreneurship some days, you gotta reframe it and find a way to move off of whatever the problem is and get through it.
Well, the concept of efficiency versus innovation. Can you describe maybe the relationship that has as an entrepreneur and as a Secret Service agent?
Efficiency versus innovation. I don't think, I mean, efficiency is something everybody strives for all the time. Entrepreneur, business, accounting office, the government, everybody's always using the term efficiency. And so you're always looking for systems and processes that help increase efficiency. But to do that requires innovation, which I find sometimes isn't necessarily efficient. You're expending a lot of resources and energy and time trying to find something that becomes ultimately the efficiency you've been looking for. And so in Secret Service world, when you first start doing protection titling, you're building out sites and motorcade routes and stuff, you don't have a clue what you're doing. You're not efficient at any of it. You've been trained, but you're not efficient at any of it until it becomes part of your DNA. And you're just hardwired to understand how I maneuver and build a secure environment in a 360-degree bubble conversation at all times. You know, it's kind of like when you talk sports to somebody that's a diehard NFL person or baseball or whatever, they can talk, and I mean, it's just part of their DNA, right? I mean, they just live it, breathe it, drink it, eat, sleep, blah, blah, blah. Security and Secret Service world gets that way over time with experience. If you're born for that, it just comes out and you're attached to it. And entrepreneurship becomes very, very similar to that, where if it's a part of your DNA and you're a purebred entrepreneur, just like you're a purebred Secret Service agent, to me, those are interchangeable. But stepping out into entrepreneurship, it's not efficient when you've never really lived it, breathed it, done it, been a founder, been a CEO. And you know, what is all that anyway at the end of the day if you've never like grew up in corporate America? For me, it was the same thing in the Secret Service. I didn't care who got what, you know, accolade on the back. I didn't care what title somebody had about which site and motorcade, like, didn't matter. Let's get the job done. And so I find for me, stepping out and looking to innovate in industry and looking for patterns that we can disrupt isn't necessarily the most efficient use of time until something happens where the light bulb moment occurs. And then we find out how to get really exciting from the innovation for efficiency.
Cool. Very cool. What are some of, I'm sure there's a brother and sisterhood of agents past, present, and in the academy for the future, and that they've all shared different stories. What are some of the best code names that you've heard for people under protection?
Oh man. I'm not sure I should get into that one. So I'll tell you that you could Google code names for protectees, you know, past, et cetera. There's been some fun ones. They typically are involved and instrumental in picking them out, but yeah, I'll step around that question just so I don't get somebody upset that I'm sharing that. But it is, you can find it on Google and there's public knowledge about it.
Fair enough.
Sorry, I'm gonna pause on that one and say sorry.
How about any?
Hate to do that to you, brother.
Are there any that never got used?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah. Okay, so let's step back. As a small town boy in California, growing up, I can relate to that. Growing up in Warrenton, where we had more cows than people when I was, you know, a
That's
kid.
funny.
So, what was your first job?
My first job was actually delivering newspapers.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
kid on
delivering
the bike,
newspapers.
chucking them at the front door type of thing?
Yep. And I actually took over my brother's paper route because he was sick. and broke his wrist. And it just somehow I filled in for him. Actually, prior to that though, I ended up procuring a lawnmower, and I would push around my neighborhood and knock on doors. And I used to mow yards and pull weeds for $5 a yard.
Procuring was an interesting word.
Yeah. We'll leave it there.
We'll deflect that one too.
Yeah, we ended up getting it. It found its way back where it was, and got another one when I could afford one.
Roger that.
But yeah, I started young, did that. Ended up on the paper route side of things, and then when I was 12, there was a local mini mart and gas station, and the guy needed a stock clerk, stock boy, something. And I don't know if he just took pity on me for being out in the middle of, the desert heat in 115 degrees mowing yards or what, but I ended up going working over there at a gas station, stocking shelves and doing stuff in there for a while.
So what was the first position that you took that felt like a career?
That's interesting. The first career I had was the Secret Service.
Yeah.
I jokingly tell people I lived life backwards. So I started young doing yard work and all that other stuff. I was an aquatics director. I used to certify and teach and train lifeguards in CPR, first aid, life-saving stuff in the water. I was a WSI water safety instructor and taught swimming lessons for a while. Went to college, got my bachelor's degree in criminal justice, went to Fiji for a while. Helped my dad do some stuff over there, building his house, and fell into product development while I was there. Got out of that, wandered around Eastern Europe and taught English. Ended up in Mexico, remodeled a house, got rid of that. Sold real estate in Utah for a while, got out of that. I was just like, I jokingly tell people, I was kind of a gypsy and wandered, and always fell back on being able to build things. I spent a long time learning from my old man how to fix stuff and remodel and repair things. So that was always like a default for me, where I could go in and remodel somebody's kitchen or bathroom if I had to earn money. So I used to do that a lot. But the real career move that I made was when I got into the Secret Service at 32 years old, the ripe age of 32. I was one of the older ones going in. Took me over 2 years of processing to get hired because I had such a weird background and foreign addresses and all that stuff. But yeah, that was my first real career, and 12 years of that. That was a big chunk of my life.
So, at what is it about you that led that gypsy lifestyle, and did you share any of that with your three brothers? Did they have similar makeup?
Yeah, so I've got there's 5 boys in my family. There was
4 brothers.
So I've got 4 brothers. I'm the second oldest. All of us are or were public servants. The 4 of them still are. I was. I was born overseas in Turkey. My dad was assigned in the military over there in the Army during Vietnam, and I don't know if I was born under some weird star or because I was born abroad that caused that wanderlust gypsy thing. The other 4 brothers of mine never went down the path that I did, or maybe the other way to say it is I never went the path they went. All of them went in the military. I decided not to do military. I decided to go to college and grind my way through things, and was, always looking for something to do in the next great idea. I was always a tinkerer, always a marketeer on something. But since the 7th grade, going back to some journal stuff, the only thing I ever wanted to do was Secret Service as a career. And I decided it was time to go back to it. So I tried, got in, and the rest is history.
So and it sounds like to some extent that even, scratched that itch of moving around a lot and seeing new places and different people and solving new problems. What introduced you to the Secret Service?
Funny story. So this will speak to the caliber of the Secret Service and the people that they hire. So when I was a senior in high school in Ridgecrest, California, my guidance counselor, we were doing all the career assessment testing, all this other stuff, didn't know what to do with me because I said Secret Service. And she had a computer program that you go through and take all these questions, and out pops your top 3 things. So number 1 was security industry related professional.
How about that?
But nobody in Ridgecrest had ever even heard of what to do with the Secret Service, let alone where do you even go. And so I pulled out the yellow pages at the time, Tyler, if you remember those.
Sure.
And at the time, there was an office not too far, it was about 2 hours away from where I lived. And there was a phone number. So I picked up the phone in the career center there at the high school and called the number. Some lady answered the phone. I gave her my name. I'm calling from this high school. I'm a senior in high school, and I'm calling to explore, how do you get into the Secret Service? Nobody here knows what to do. And the lady said, actually, just hang on just a minute for me. And a couple minutes later, she says, hold on, I'm going to send you to so-and-so. So some guy answered the phone and spent over an hour talking to some kid that he would never meet, answered every question I had, and told me stories that were like heroic legends to me. Of traveling in the world and protecting the President of the United States. And then it's the coolest thing you'll ever do in your life. And took the time to send me an application, some brochures in the mail to the high school. And I never forgot that, ever. And so I'm always, at every chance I get, I'll tell anybody that story, but I also go out and talk to high school kids, junior high school kids, Boy Scout troops, to this day, and try to recruit people in. In fact, when I was in the Los Angeles field office, the attorney that I use for all of our corporate stuff now, his son was in the Boy Scouts out there, and he called and asked if they could come in and get a tour of the field office over there. Absolutely, come on down. Not only did they have the tour, but they had the largest turnout they ever had, with all of the parents showing up, wanting to see the Secret Service office, meet an actual Secret Service agent. I showed them some of the limos and all the fun stuff that we had. And Brett told me about 6 months ago that one of the boys from there just got hired into the Secret Service. So kind of neat for me, I don't even know the guy's name. I wish I had it to thank him today, because I could figure out if I could find him today. But he took all that time, and I can't say thank you to him. I don't know who he was, other than he was a special agent with the Secret Service. And so I just kind of pay that forward as much as I can. But now for me, I'm done that, and you affect change for people that probably change the trajectory of their life.
So you held that conversation with you for 10, 15 years before, at an 18-year-old high school kid to a 32-year-old joining the Secret Service. Like, what was the switch that flipped that said, okay, I'm going to commit to this now, and I'm going to stop what I've been doing, the tinkering?
Yeah, what's funny about that is I actually applied in my 20s. I think let's just say I was 23, 24, 25, somewhere in that range. But the response was that you had to have some professional career experience before they would consider me any further, even though I had a bachelor's degree and blah, blah, blah. And so when I got that, I went to work to try to find professional experience. And so I started a couple of brands way back when. I got involved in sales for an organization, and I did real estate stuff. I did English stuff over in Prague. Like I did a lot of things with the intent of trying to build out a resume for the service, not realizing that I was building two resumes at one time for not just a service, but entrepreneurship.
Then at what point did you have your first kid?
So I got in at 32, and I had my son at 35.
How did that change or inform your career in the Secret Service?
It's interesting. That job is an amazing job, but it's really, if you're a single person, easy, awesome lifestyles of the rich and sham. I mean, you're James Bond traveling the world. When you start having a family and stuff, it begins to be a problem, because they feel every brunt of something that they didn't sign up for. They just didn't know. And so when while I was bopping all over the world, I started writing postcards. So like Dylan, before he was ever born, knew he was coming, but I started writing postcards from different cities or states or countries that I would be sent to all over the world. So he's got a stack of postcards this high, from dad all over the world, telling him, hey man, here's what, and they're dated, and kind of gives him just a postcard diary of where I was at, or, what I was doing, and trying to stay connected from a distance to something that for them, dad was around the president, or dad was around this, or they got to come see the motorcades and see, the Marine One land or Air Force One land, all that kind of stuff. But it was just like, whatever, I mean, no big deal. It's like real estate for you. I mean, like, awesome stuff, but your kids are like, whatever.
Right.
Now I think they're going to start to see it. So like they all They were at the White House Christmas parties. They've got pictures with the president and first ladies. They've got experiences you cannot get any other way than what I opened up a door for them to.
Mhm. And then you
But
had
it was hard. It was hard.
So what were maybe some of the, like, what's a big plus of that life with family and a big minus of that life with family?
I think the big plus is you start to set a barometer for kids to see. I came from small town, Ridgecrest, California. There was more people at Cal State Fullerton enrolled in college when I left to enroll there and went there than population in my town.
Yeah.
If that makes you right. I mean, that's an eye-opening thing. But for them, they didn't have where I had, where, like your point, there was more cows in Warrenton than there was people. For me, that you start to wander, and I took them to New York. I took them to Palm Springs around President Obama. I did as best I could to get them where I was,
Mhm.
or send those postcards, because it starts in my mind to set, this is a baseline for you. And if where I came from got me to here, and you're now here, where can you go? And so that was always how I tried to view it. If I can set a base foundation for you of the White House and the president and things like that, I'd love for you to go to the moon.
So how, you to your kids, what were your parents to you like in terms of that baseline?
My dad, he was probably born in the wrong era. I mean, he was a pioneer guy. I grew up in northern Utah, so in the winters and stuff, snow everywhere, but we would hunt. If he didn't hunt, we didn't have food.
Wow.
I mean, literally.
Yeah.
We lived in student housing with, at the time there was 3 of us before all 5 of us came along, but we lived in student housing in an apartment complex while he was going to school. And, I mean, they were dirt poor as you could get. And so he hunted and fished. So we had food. He'd take the hides of deer and make mittens and vests and moccasins. And I mean, the guy was just born in the wrong era. And so I learned a tremendous amount of stuff from him on, again, the magic and the movement. I mean, you face the adversity. He never backed down. He kept going, even when he didn't have an answer, which is not easy to do, especially dragging a wife and 5 little kids around.
Mhm.
But he kept pushing forward in the movement and trying to find a path for himself, and ultimately went through college again for chiropractic school, got out of that, and started his practice in Ridgecrest, and ended up becoming fairly successful as a small business owner, and did pretty well for himself. And my mom was a government employee. She worked when we left Utah and went to Ridgecrest. She got a job. Ridgecrest is like it's a military town. It exists because of the Navy base out there. And she started working out there for, peanuts when I was a kid. But just recently retired 2 years ago after a 40-year career.
Wow.
So I mean, they're success stories in their own right.
So that
Certainly not easy doing what they did.
Yeah, it's a huge contrast between the way your kids are growing up and the way you grew up. And as much as you have raised that bar, being in the White House with the president and first ladies and all, what's an advantage that you had in your lifestyle as a kid that your kids do not have?
Hungry.
Yeah.
I used to look at things in movies and aspire to find that and go touch it. They get to touch it, and it's handed to them. I had to claw my way to it and find a path. Back to your innovation and efficiency question, I had to innovate and design a life that led me to that and make it efficient for myself. For them, I don't know if this is the right thing or not. We'll see. But they've been they have access to a lot of things that I never, ever had at those ages. I mean, could you imagine you and your kids? How old's your youngest?
They're 6 and 7.
Yeah. So let's say, I think my youngest one, the last time we got a photo of the president, she was 4 or 5. But all of them are standing with the president and first lady. In fact, the president's got his hands on my son's shoulders. So now, growing up like that, that should be on your wall. And I mean, you'll get to say, hey, I was at the White House, got to meet the president one day. Like, who does that?
Yeah.
But that's the kind of stuff they got to be handed to. For me, that was the stuff I dreamt about and watched in movies, where you saw people down in LA and Hollywood and, watching the cool movies of stuff going on. It's like, how do you do that? And for me, I'm hoping to get them to do all their things on their own. I don't want them to be anything other than what they want to be in life. Entrepreneurship is hard. It's very hard. Being a Secret Service agent, it's hard. It's a hard lifestyle, but that's just how I grew up, was a hard lifestyle. I had a very hard childhood. And then my parents even split up and divorced, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. So I had a very hard time growing up with stuff,
Mhm.
but you at some point find a path of not my problem. And here you either design your life, or you're gonna design your life and build that plan and create the success, or you're gonna fit somebody else's.
So your kid's not going through those challenges, like you say. We'll see how that plays out. My kids aren't going to go through those challenges. We'll see how that plays out. So that's definitely a difference in an advantage for you, that being hungry. What's an advantage that your kids have that you do not, or you did not as a kid?
I think this goes back to the barometer setting, Tyler, where my baseline was single wide trailer park, tumbleweeds, and top ramen for 19 cents for a meal, or cutting up a hot dog and a box of mac and cheese was a night at the Ritz at my house. These kids have actually eaten at the Ritz, right? I mean, it's just a different animal. And so if your thresholded starting point is X, how far can you go, up or down? And the choice is up to you. But for me, if my starting point was down here, you don't have too much more to place to fall down to.
Yeah.
When we grew up and where we were at, I think because of the struggles of what we were going through with all 5 boys growing up in a divorce, in a town with no money, blah, 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 blah. Most people thought we'd all wind up in, drugs, prison, whatever. And to a T, all 5 of us ended up being the definition of the brand that I started Hero, and helping everyone remain operational.
So the resiliency that was baked into your childhood, I guess in some way needs to be manufactured now for how high you've set the bar for your kids. What circumstances and scenarios and opportunities do you put them into to help them build that sense of resiliency?
That's a good question. A lot of sports, team sports stuff. They're into travel volleyball, travel baseball. I've got one that she was just in if you saw it out in the production of Annie out here,
Yeah.
she was just in that. And so we're constantly encouraging to go, try it. If you don't like it, cross it off the list. But if you commit, you better commit all the way, and you're not quitting. I won't let you do that, because you made a commitment to your team, to your coach, to your classmates, to whatever. And earlier you asked me a question about the team and the choice and service and entrepreneurship. My brothers and I we didn't get the chance to choose each other. We were just kind of born and attached to each other. But somehow, like my older brother and I, that was just what we did, was look out for one another and push. Excuse me. So for the 3 of them, I think having them in all those things that require a commitment, being your word, being disciplined to follow through and learn the game, if that's what you want to do. But if you don't want to do it, you're not done until the season's over. You committed, we're going to follow through. So I think there's a lot of things that we try to do and try to encourage. Obviously, you're a dad. I mean, they become your world. And when I was in Secret Service and I didn't have kids, and then you do, the lens and the optics of how you view it starts to shift. And so the older they get, the more things they're starting to do and get into, it was harder for me to be on the road and sleeping on a car plane, next to the motorcade in a C-130 or whatever, or a C-17, traveling around the world and sending postcards when they're going off to play baseball, and then Christmas morning and birthdays and ballet. And I'm sitting, in a security room or standing outside somebody's hotel door. What am I doing? I could work hard and keep doing this and be honored to do it, or you know what, I've done it. I got all the way to where I wanted to get to, which was the highest levels you can get on presidential protection, and flew on Air Force One and traveled all over the world, and thought I got a lot of cool stuff behind me. I got a lot of cool stuff all over the walls. The kids have seen it, but I think it's time to shift gears and show them that you can reconfigure, you can innovate, you can redesign your life, and let's roll the dice and be an entrepreneur and build brand and build what we're going to do. And I'm here to help you. I'm at every baseball practice now. I'm at volleyball. I'm at the Annie plays. I'm, just being present.
That's and now you've got to use a pun, a coffee pun for Drunk Hero. You've blended your entrepreneurial. Drinkhero.com. Everybody check it out. But yeah, you've coffee blended your way into an entrepreneurial world, but dragged your protective career to it first with leatherback, correct? And it was one of your brothers that helped in an experience your brother had that helped inspire the idea. I've heard the story before. I've heard you tell the story before, but would you please tell that story again to inform anyone listening about what leatherback is and what inspired the idea?
Yeah, I'd be glad to, Tyler. So leatherback gear started about 5.5 years ago, kind of on the backbone of a lot of different things. So back to your question of innovation or efficiency. I met a lot of neat people in LA, a lot of high net worth people, a lot of innovators, a lot of tech people, blah, blah, blah. And a buddy of mine who's become a very good friend of mine and partner, when the active shooting thing was going on all the time and it was kind of in vogue and a big, newsworthy topic, it seemed, for so long, he and I were ideating our way through with a technology team on how do you build an app that combats the active shooting problem. And so my problem was, as we kept going through it, if I don't hit the phone and the Iron Man suit jumps out, this is just a cool way to call 911. Why was I involved in that? Had to do with Secret Service. Everybody knows, Premier Protection Agency, a lot of trainings, a lot of school stuff that I was doing trainings on and learning. I had kids going to school that teachers were talking about active shooter training. Prior to joining the service, though, about a year or two prior, my older brother, who's law enforcement, responded to an active shooting. And so I got to experience firsthand what that does to a law enforcement person whose job is to go out there and do what he did and save lives, but how that impacted him and the struggles he went through for so long doing the job. So flash forward. Summer of 2016, in June, I'm the lead guy for, at the time it was candidate Donald Trump, come to Los Angeles, Orange County. And I was assigned with his safety and security. I was responsible for the ball of wax when he landed. And so we're traveling from his golf course in Palos Verdes on 405 North towards his residence in Beverly Hills when it just became a parking lot on the freeway. Like nobody was moving, but the scanners that I had going, the police radio, everything cracked off. The shots fired at UCLA, which was about 2 miles from where I was. So I started watching the feeds on the phone, listening to everything, and watched how the cops showed up on campus and do what they do. They set up a perimeter, and then they start to respond and methodically go into a building, expel people out safely and securely. Well, they're doing that, Tyler. 99.9% of these college kids walking out, hands up, all of them had backpacks on. And it finally hit me, based on my brother's experience, based on my training and experience and background, based on the technology stuff that I was ideating through, that this is how you help people. And the way we do this is we take a backpack and separate it into front and back protection. So it's 100% a functional backpack, but it needs to function and be the same level that I would wear standing next to the President of the United States to afford you as a person caught in the worst situation that you could ever find yourself, the time until a guy like me got to you. And so I went home that night, cut up a backpack in the garage, tried to sew it together, made the ugliest thing you've ever seen in your life, but it conveyed the message of what I was trying to do. And 5.5 years later, we've raised money. We've got 4 patents in the United States. I've got 3 international patents, multiple trademarks. We did 2 million in revenues last year. And it's been an interesting project and product. It's a training ground for entrepreneurship. And that's when I left the job, was to take full time on leatherback.
If you may have said it explicitly, I know what leatherback is, but anybody that doesn't, when he's talking about a book bag, it is essentially converts into a bulletproof chest and back protection.
Yeah, correct.
And is that leatherback gear? What's the website?
Yeah, it's leatherbackgear.com. And got a few people ask the question, why leatherback gear? And that has to do with my background in scuba diving and being in the South Pacific and leatherback sea turtles. I was trying to come up with a brand because I'm a marketeering branding guy. What could we name this thing as a backpack? JanSport was obviously taken, so we got to come up with something else. And so the image of a turtle was kind of how I would convey to people messaging on the front side of building out the concept of, I want you to take a backpack and think of it like a turtle shell.
Yeah.
So that you're inside this thing and you're safe and secure until law enforcement arrives. The problem was every time I would do homework on the name, Turtle Wax would pull up, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would pull up, or anything like that. And so I was just going through some old stuff and was involved with a leatherback over in Fiji, sea turtle, and did the homework on them. And it turned out they've been around since dinosaur era. They've survived every possible threat you can imagine, from dinosaurs to natural disasters to humans, and they keep surviving. And the interesting piece to their shell is it's not exterior, it's hidden underneath their skin, and it expands and contracts. And so it became like the perfect icon and name for what we were doing with leatherback gear. In fact, the icon for leatherback gear is actually a leatherback sea turtle. And so that's kind of the backstory of why leatherback gear. But the concept of what it does, you as a consumer, whether you're a kid in school or you're an executive traveling around the world, you most likely have a backpack, if not multiple backpacks, but you can almost customize protection layers. So we include our stuff in it. But if you put a laptop and a textbook and then you separate it, if you're at an airport or a school or a hospital and you put it on, well, that laptop may be against your chest above the armor piece that's in there that you don't even feel is in there. Same thing with the book in the back. And so it gives another layer of protection that you as a consumer, you don't even realize you're doing it, but you're customizing and adding layers of stoppability to what that can be. And so we spent a long time explaining to people what it is and how it connects to things like fire extinguishers and the fire industry. So, most people, I ask the question, when's the last time a kid died at a school from a fire? And I don't know if you know the answer to this, but yeah, no clue, do you? It would probably shock you, but it's been about 70 years ago that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And yet
Wow.
at a school, there's the fire suppression system, there's fire sprinklers, there's fire extinguishers. Fire department still comes running. But in every classroom, in every hallway, in every stairwell, there's a fire extinguisher. And so it's literally a personal reactionary tool to a life-threatening problem called a fire. Everybody knows how to use all that stuff. Everybody knows to check the door for heat, stay low if there's smoke, stop, drop, roll. But when it comes to the comparison of active shooting situations, I'm not trying to take away that they're scary. Nobody likes to get shot at.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be burned to death in a fire either. I got to tell you, that's probably right up there with awful as it gets. But everybody is confident enough and comfortable enough to carry a fire extinguisher. You probably have one in your house or close to where you're sitting right now. A lot of people have them in their car. It's like just normal. So what I decided was we need to do something with the backpack that became that personal reactionary tool to a life-threatening problem called an active shooter. Fire department still comes running, but they're dependent on you to grab that extinguisher and mitigate it, and as long as you can, and help yourself and those around you until they get there. An active shooting thing, my thought was, if you could deploy something to help yourself, if you're going to do what they teach you to do, which is run, hide, fight, my contention is you should run with safety and protection on. If you're going to hide, you should hide with safety and protection on. And God forbid you're ever having to fight in one of those situations, you should do that with something on. I don't ever want anybody to do that. What I'd rather you do is you run or hide, but you need the protection on until a guy like me gets there that can take that situation on.
And I've seen this product in live and in color, and it looks just like a normal backpack and functions just like a normal backpack. It is a normal backpack, only it's got these. Is bulletproof the right word that I want to use for the inserts?
They're inserts. They're armored panels. They're literally a soft armor is what they call it. So it's bendable and pliable. They're extremely lightweight. In fact, with the two of them in a backpack, it adds 1.5 pounds. And so, like, most people don't even realize it's in there when I toss in the backpack. But it's technically an armor panel. And so we call it, bulletproof is correct. A lot of people use bulletproof vest is what everybody knows. In reality, it's kind of a misnomer, and I get trolls every day hitting us up on social about nothing's bulletproof. Like, totally get it. That's why it's an armored backpack.
Yeah.
It is what it is, but everybody understands bulletproof.
Well, I was shocked at how little of an impact the inserts feel in terms of the usability of the backpack. I can't believe that those things are capable. I mean, it's like wearing another T-shirt or something. Like I can't believe those things are capable of armoring somebody at that kind of high level.
Well, yeah, and you're highlighting one of your first questions to me on efficiency and innovation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's the biggest innovation in backpacks since they've been patented 100 years ago. Right. But it's 100 years to find an efficient way to take something you're already carrying and make it a tool. It's an innovative efficiency in something everybody's aware of. Right. But those backpacks are 100% backpacks. Looks, acts, feels, does everything that a backpack does. Oh, by the way, it hides the skill sets of a Secret Service agent in it to help you if you need it.
And that's the same material. Was that the same material or different than what you were using as a Secret Service agent?
Same material.
Same exact thing.
Yep.
Okay, so growing up in Virginia, we have 4 seasons. So I'm ready at any given time for 8 days of no power because of a big snowstorm. Right. So I've got this slice of prepper in me. Do you find that that community is buying those backpacks, or is it mostly people going to school?
Yeah, so it's a good question too. When I started this, I thought for sure the low-hanging fruit conversations would be around the preppers and the military crowd. Mm-hmm. But what we found was there was more and more moms buying product for their kids going to school, and that became an interesting thing for us because that was also part of what I started the whole process for. I just assumed that it was going to be so much more difficult to get a mom to understand. If you're going to buy a backpack, you should buy one that separates into front and back protection because of what goes on every day out there. Like, you just don't know where the roulette wheel is going to stop as to which school is going to have this problem. And I understand the debate on politics and gun rights and what, totally get all that. Not my lane. There's 100,000 people that are way smarter than I am that are probably involved in Capitol Hill having this debate, and they're going to have it next year and the year after that. And it's just going to be an ongoing problem. So in the meantime, let's help you. And the only thing I can do to help you is to give you a tool that helps keep you safe should you ever be caught in one of these situations.
So again, something else I can relate to being a real estate agent is coffee. I today had 2 cups between 4:30 and 5:30, another one on the way into work, and then I had to go to some association event where I had 3 more cups of coffee. This is not highly unusual, but it's a little more coffee than I'm used to. But as you can tell, I'm peak caffeine right now. But Drink Hero, Hero Beverage Company, help everyone remain operational. We've sat down and talked about it at length, which is a great privilege of mine. And Cliff, our friend, I get to see regularly on the jiu-jitsu mats. He talks about it and brings it in regularly, and it is delicious coffee. But tell me about the origin story of that.
Yeah, so you can tell you're a coffee guy with the word origin. That's big in the coffee space. But ironically, also in Hero world stuff. So for us, Hero came about in the midst of the pandemic last year, Tyler, around May, June. I think it was actually June formally. You can imagine in Secret Service, acronyms mean everything to simplify communication. The less we can talk and step on someone on the radio, the more efficient we can make things using acronyms, the better off we all are. And so I just offer that up as to how and why Hero came to be. In the middle of the pandemic, leatherback gear, we had a ton of requests that were coming at us all the time. Would we donate to police heroes, to teacher heroes, to firefighter heroes, to nurse heroes, et cetera? Answer was always, of course, yes, just like everybody else in the middle of the pandemic. How do we help? My problem was I don't feel like we were helping. because you needed PPE equipment. You needed stuff to combat the global pandemic called COVID. And so early in the morning in June, I'm running on the treadmill at like 4 o'clock in the morning, had Hero top of mind for all the Hero requests that we had to give away. And it occurred to me that Hero is an acronym that defines what a hero is. And that means help everyone remain operational. And so I called the creative team and said, guys, I got an idea. I think we should shift gears here and build a line of apparel called Hero, and let's sell it, give away the proceeds to help support the acquisition of PPE equipment for cops, firefighters, nurses, doctors, firefighters, military, whatever. So we did that. And in short order, Tyler, in the summer, it was pretty obvious that Hero was starting to resonate with people, because I mean, you got to be a real winner not to support heroes. And I mean that sarcastically.
Yeah.
but branding Hero was starting to resonate, and it was really obvious to me that there was way more than just a t-shirt for what we were doing to help all of these heroes that were out there. And so again, me being a marketeer and branding and tinkerer guy, it occurred to me that let's build the Hero Beverage Company, and let's build a brand and a business that gives back and supports heroes from all walks of life. And so I formed Hero Beverage Company, filed trademarks on Drink Hero, Hero Beverage Company, Hero Help Everyone Remain Operational, blah, blah, blah. Got all those in. I almost fell over when I could buy drinkhero.com, but I did. And we built a website out in January. Right before that, I had met in the summer. Well, I called them. I met them a long time ago previously, but I called them in the middle of the summer. This group out of Arizona that makes some unbelievable coffees. And said, here, you may or may not remember me. Here's who I'm calling about. Here's what I want to do. I want to launch a line of coffee called Hero and support 5 categories of heroes: police, fire, military, medical, and education. Would you guys be our co-packer? And they, of course, jumped at the chance. And here's why. In the middle of the pandemic, 90% of their business shut off. And it shut off because they supplied hospitality and restaurant people, which, as you know, in the middle of COVID, nobody could go anywhere. Nobody could do anything. And so supply stopped, revenue stopped. And so they're thinking, how do we keep people on payroll? How do we keep moving forward? Like, what are we going to do here? And then here comes Mike and this brand called Hero. And so they jumped at the chance to start with us. And so we turned it on in January, and it's been going ever since. I've been doing my best to keep it at periscope depth underwater this entire year. And the reason was I wanted to learn a lot. Had never played in the beverage category. I want to know who we were up against, what was our strengths, where were we weak at, how do we become efficient at what we were doing in the innovation of what we were doing. And so I made some calls to people like Taya Kyle, Chris Kyle's widow. You know, he was the American Sniper, if you saw the movie, and explained what I'd like to do and put Chris on the cover of a bag and support her foundation with a 10% gift back. Taya jumped at the chance to work with us. Subsequent to that, we've signed on the Secret Service Association, California Association of Highway Patrol, Tunnels to Towers just recently signed on with us. We've got TAPS, which is a big organization out in Arlington that supports military families. We've got tons of them coming in development. We're getting ready to launch a big one here. That's a collaboration. I got the first ever consumable product license from a company called Sony Pictures for a brand called Cobra Kai. We're getting ready to launch that here in short order in conjunction with that. We have a lot of big hope for that, and that'll be a give back that supports after school programs for kids. So it's a really fun brand. It's an interesting thing that's happening with it. And it's got a lot of legs to go, because we can do not just the original 5: police, fire, military, medical, and education, but we've added farmers, EMS personnel. We're working on a lineman blend for the power, the people working on the power lines, truck drivers. I mean, you name it. If you're out there helping people remain operational, we want to highlight and give back. And it's a lot of fun.
And you kids are they all teenagers now?
No, so I've got a 7, 10, and 13.
Okay. Do they kind of understand what's going on at 10, 13, even 7, the dad's entrepreneurial spirit, building businesses? Do they contribute in any way?
Yeah, the older 2 want me to help them build YouTube channels and websites. And I'm just like, oh my God. But they're excited about it. In fact, the older one came home from school the other day, and they were talking about the economy and economics of things. And she mentioned that Dad's got a couple of companies with Secret Service. So, the teacher was asking if I could come in and talk to the class. And so little by little, they're understanding what's happening. And it's neat. There's a lot of fun stuff associated to it and with it. And it's fun to watch them. And if this is what they want to do, cool. If you want to go train dolphins someday, cool. Like whatever that is, I'm all about for you.
Very cool. So what do you have them working? Like you obviously have a work ethic that's, I'm sure, partly ingrained, partly a result of, goals that you've set and built. How do you build a work ethic for your kids? And is that what you want them to have? Are you satisfied with that? Or is that just your DNA, or both?
Yeah, I think for me, I want them to be happy with what they're doing and be just enthusiastic and excited about life. So, if you want to go be an attorney, awesome. Here's the path. You want to be an entrepreneur, cool. You want to train horses or turtles, whatever that is, I want them to be able to do that. But for me, the work ethic is modeling for them that here's the objective, and then let's work out the list to get into it. And every day we get up, and no pun intended, but we shoot from the hip and pull the trigger. Here's the list. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't, we throw it out. We start a new one. And we just constantly are evaluating and going to the next step for Hero, for Leatherback, for everything I do. And I hope that they pick that up along the way. My dad, here's a shovel. My 16th birthday is a great story. My 16th birthday in the middle of summer in the desert, I got woken up at 5:30 and said, "Hey, there's pancakes ready. It's going to be a hot one today." And I had to go dig a trench 1.5 feet deep and 1 foot wide for a block wall that he wanted built. And that was my 16th birthday. Most people are like, "What?" That's how my dad, showed love and affection. It's just the way it was. And I'm not pissed off about it. I think it's funny. But my kids would probably lose their mind if that's what I did to them today. But I don't make them go out and dig ditches and all that other stuff. But I do try to show them some minor things along the way. My daughter, we just did the room remodel, and she got some stuff from IKEA. And so her nightstand, "Hey, Dad, can you put this together?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can, but I'm not going to." You're going to do it. So I sat there with her, and here's the drill, here's the stuff. And so she was going through the step by step and following the instructions, good or bad from IKEA instructions, they were instructions. Well, she got about halfway through, Tyler, and was trying to assemble something, and it wasn't lining up. And so I'm sitting there, and we worked our way through it. And she says, "I think I put these in the wrong spot." I said, "Yeah, you did. But this is kind of like life. Watch, this is just like life. Let me undo this. Let me undo this. We can put it back together, and then watch." And she's like, "That's really cool." I go, "Life's no different. Make a mistake, undo it, let's go. Fix it and go on. Forget about it and let's move on. But put it back together the way it needs to be." And it's neat to throw little lessons like that and stuff without, the way I had to do it. But I don't know if it's more efficient the way I'm doing it. I don't know if it's right. I don't know.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, the job gets done.
Yeah, we are genuinely, if there's a right way to do it, there'd be a book and everyone would read it and everyone would
100%.
just execute. Yeah. And nobody would get anything wrong ever. And all of our kids would be tremendous producers and happy and perfect relationships. But so your story is an anecdote onto a question that I want to ask on a grander scale. So you retired Secret Service around 2016. Now you're at home, presumably full time, working from your home office or wherever. So now your presence in your kid's life is completely different than it had been up until that point. Like, how did your role as a dad change when your lifestyle changed?
Yeah, that's another good question. Just to clarify too, so it was last year when I left at the end of June that I left. Yeah, so it's been a year and change since I left.
Okay.
So, but in that year and a half, I mean, they became homeschooled. The world collapsed, so we were all thrown into the house together. So it was interesting to go from being scattered all over the country and the world to we're all under the same roof.
Yeah.
For an extended period of time. And so, there's a lot of friction points because nobody was used to me being here all the time. But it's ultimately worked out really, really well, especially when things were moving again. Baseball started back up, school started back up, volleyball started back up. And so I don't miss a practice anymore. Whereas before, hey, Dad, can you be at my game? Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to be there. I'm on my way. I'm coming. And then the call comes. And then I got to go home and pack a bag. They're in bed and I'm gone before they ever get up in the morning, and miss the game, miss the practice, miss the ballet, miss whatever. And there's nothing I can do about it. And now I can do something about it. And hopefully they see the difference that, I walked away from a world that most people would kill for to build a world that they get to be, I'm a part of their world now, and see what goes on.
So that's a pretty dramatic. I didn't think about it in the context of now you're like quarantined basically together for the pandemic. What's something that you learned about your kids or your wife suddenly being around them full time again? Something that might have surprised you?
Yeah, I think resiliency, and back to that statement of the magic's in the movement, man. Everybody just kind of adapted, improvised, and overcame, and just moved on. Life moves on. But everybody was pretty resilient.
So what do you feel like you're as a dad? What's your role? What's Mike's role as a dad?
I think to model for them best I can to be what a good man is, what a good dad is, what a good husband is, how to build a good life, how to work hard, how to be accountable and responsible. And then just, be the best loving dad I can be, which sometimes requires some discipline. Sometimes it's just giving you a hug and cracking jokes with you.
Yeah, I'd imagine growing up, you expressed love with your brothers through fistfights, stealing each other's stuff, wrestling, and now you've got girls. Tell me what's blowing your mind about that.
Yeah, my older brother, one of the best stories that he and I growing up today. He and I are best friends today, but dude, that guy picked me up and threw me through the drywall, like literally threw me through a wall, which is the moment we became best friends. Because I'm literally, Tyler, sitting in the wall and we're like, and instantly became, we got to fix this and somehow we got to work together. And so we ended up paper macheing the wall back together. And we're like, yeah, it looks pretty good. My mom walked into her house like, what in the? But today, to your point, with 5 of us, it was all cops and robbers and blowing stuff up. And I'm surprised, we somehow made it out alive. But now I have a son and we've got 2 daughters. It's the youngest one. She's a lot like I am, and God help whoever that becomes she's with, because it's weird watching the female version of yourself run around. You're like, oh my God.
I've got one of those
this
too.
Was like, I'm so sorry. It's just weird.
Yeah, it puts into perspective like what your parents tolerated when you see your kid as like a little mini you.
Yeah.
So what's something that your kids have changed about you or taught you?
That's a good question. I think to be selfless and more giving and caring about everybody else but myself.
Yeah,
I just don't. I'm first to fight, but I'm last to eat.
Oh gosh, what's a challenge that was unexpected? Just being a dad in general, or maybe just coming home to being around full time.
That's probably a health related question. So my youngest one, when she was in utero, we discovered she had a malformed kidney. And at 5 months old, she became part of a study at UCLA where they went in laparoscopically and took out one of her kidneys that was malformed. And so she was like one of 6 kids or something like that as part of this research study. And, having them tell you that there's an issue as a result of taking a cancer medication for nausea that the doctor prescribed, and then come to find out that caused all kinds of kidney problems in babies. That was a tough one because there's nothing you can do.
So there are a lot of people that go through challenging times with their kids, whether their life is at risk or their lifestyle is at risk, or just something scary. What kind of advice would you give to a parent that would be in a comparable scenario where they just, maybe the husband and wife are having a hard time dealing with it together, or maybe they're having difficulty reconciling it with their own head, or a crisis of faith. Is there anything that you might say or suggest to a parent that's living that scenario now?
Yeah, that's a deep question, Tyler. I think my experiences have led to the fact that everything works out for the best, no matter how hard that is to go through. So on the front end to the tunnel of darkness that you may be in, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, there's always a positive outcome. And sometimes it just takes a while to find it and figure it out and decide for yourself that, you know what, that was the best thing in the world that happened.
Perspective.
And it's not easy to hear that. And it's not easy to, when you're in the middle of all the crap, to think that. But I think that's the advice I would give somebody is you got to learn how to condition yourself to find the mindset of, it takes discipline to think your way through it, but there's a reason for this going on. And it always, always, always is for the best.
Looking back at your kids growing up, what are some of the milestones that just kind of pop into your head?
The fact that I had kids.
That was a significant experience.
Some of the milestones, it's just fun to watch them grow and develop, from their birthday parties to, my son Dylan, when he started playing baseball for the first time. I remember being a kid playing Little League and pitching and doing all this stuff and playing T-ball. So watching somebody start to get into that I used to do, that was really neat to experience. And now that kid eats, sleeps, drinks, breathes baseball. He's convinced he's going to play professionally for the Washington Nationals, and who am I to tell him otherwise? Yeah. So it's neat to see all of that. I think when they get mobility, again, back to the magic's in the movement, watching them all learn how to walk the first time, and then all of a sudden it clicks. And it's like their radius expanded from what's in arm's reach to where the hell did they go? But their radius expands, and just watching the creativity and the enthusiasm for experiencing things at multiple levels is just really, really awesome.
So expanding that radius into the future and thinking about milestones that your girls or your boy have in the next 5, 10, 50 years, like what are some of the ones that you may look forward to or dread?
So right now we have a foreign exchange student living with us that I ended up having to talk to 2 gentlemen from high school age bracket last night. I don't look forward to that. Just sort of happened. And so we had to have that fun experience last night of being protective dad to a 15-year-old that I wasn't expecting to have to do. I don't look forward to that with everybody else. But I think some of the milestones coming up that are going to be fun are watching them, spend a lifetime through school, and then they decide, hey, I'm going to college. Where's that going to be? What am I going to school for? Watching who you become, not what you become, but really who you continue to become and develop in the world is just awesome to experience. And watching how they sharpen and they struggle, and then they get excited and continue to grind through things. Milestones are daily, weekly, yearly. It's just neat to be a part of the experience, and you're just probably like you. You just feel blessed to have kids to watch and see it through that lens.
Yeah, it's amazing. Now looking forward and talking about the not what they become, but who they become. If you got to outline that who, or at least set a foundation for that who, in the form of maybe a couple of characteristics that you think are just 100% needed to thrive and survive in this world, what are some of the characteristics that you hope that your kids have or continue to cultivate moving forward?
Yeah, I think a genuine caring or love towards other people, but an interest in being strong in their beliefs, but open to have the emotional intelligence and development of understanding other positions and opinions. But you got to help the cause forward here. I hope they're patriotic. I hope they're proud of who they are and where they come from. I hope they're excited about the choices and path they choose to take. I mean, being responsible, being accountable for all of it, and just having the conviction to stand behind what you believe in and go.
Awesome. Well, what's a way that over the last, I don't know, 15 years that you feel like you've improved as a dad?
Well, definitely having daughters. That's a whole, like, learning a foreign language to me. But I think you're making a hard decision to leave. You know, samurai warriors don't take the samurai sword off and decide we're not going to be a samurai warrior anymore. And I think for me, I'm man enough to tell you, I shed tears when I left the Secret Service and turned in my badge and my gun. That was the hardest decision in my life, and ultimately the best one, to leave an entire world of what I knew and was proud to be a part of, to become more proud to be a dad and do what I do all day to be around.
And now I've got some kind of rapid fire questions to kind of
Let's
get
go.
towards wrapping up our segment.
It's been a while since I've been shot at, so let's go.
All right. Money's no object. Time is no object. Quantum space is no object. What gift would you give to every father on the planet? Could be an item. It could be an experience. Could be a feeling. What gift would you give to every father on the planet?
That is a tough question, Tyler. I think I would give you the gift of the problem I described to you with my daughter and her kidney. She's not a special needs kid. She's got no issues, no restrictions. In fact, I mean, I feel like I hold her back sometimes because you're like, my God, you're running on one here. And so it's kind of a running joke with us. But the gift of having that experience of, you send her off and I don't know what's going to happen in surgery and all that stuff. And then she comes back. I think the emotional side of that and the experience of letting go of that and bringing her back in and then cultivating and watching her develop, the passion behind that and the love and admiration and affection you develop. I mean, it's an interesting bond. So I think maybe the gift I would give is just the love and affection and attention you can give your kids that's heightened through those kind of experiences.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What are 2 or 3 characteristics that every dad should have? Every super dad should share these common characteristics to be the best they can be being a dad.
Being humble and, showing some humility, not being afraid to make fun of yourself, and, play Barbie dolls with your daughters, or going out, even though I'm slam busy, my son wants to play catch every day. Absolutely. Let's go. And I think putting them first. I mean, I understand there's other things that take priority sometimes, but I do the best I can to be present for them. So I think that's probably something, 2 powerful words in language to understand, or be present.
I'm going to diverge for a minute and jump on that for a second. The idea of being present, and this is kind of a broad question, but talking about time, I want to talk about your relationship with time, being a parent to 3 kids. Can you talk about your relationship with time?
Yeah, we all never seem to have enough of it, no matter what's going on. I think I spent a lot of time. I'm structuring my days. I can show you my calendar on my phone, and it's all the way down. But I do my best in the morning to make sure that I'm here when they're getting up and we're getting ready for school and making breakfast and making sure they got their water bottles and all the stuff. And I'm just a part of that, and then send them on the way. And then I'm structured throughout the day on Zoom calls, meetings, emails, paperwork, investor calls, and then trying to do things like pick up from swimming to volleyball to baseball to whatever I need to be. And I think being present demands and requires an organized efficiency in a schedule, because there's me, but there's actually 5 of us over here, and everybody's got their own thing going on, from school to activities to who's going where, and like you have to be efficient in the scheduling of time, even though you want to be present for everything.
Is there a favorite fictional dad or television dad that you always liked now or growing up?
Probably gonna laugh at me, but the one I like now most is Tim Allen in Last Man Standing.
Yeah.
I love the personality. I love that he's the marketing branding guy for the company. Drives an old truck. I've got an old truck. And I just like the way he slows it down for his daughters to understand and teaches life lessons along the way through everyday experiences. Love that show. Thought he was great.
I haven't watched. I used to love Home Improvement. So
I loved Home Improvement too when I was a kid. Yeah.
And I've watched the Santa Claus 14 times already because it's
just
December,
watch it again.
It's December 10th. So,
well, if you've never seen it, you should watch it. It's an excellent show. Last Man Standing. Excellent show.
I will. So this is the billboard question. If you had a billboard, what advice would you give to dads? Like you're driving 100 miles an hour on 66 and you get just a billboard and they crank their neck, take a quick peek at, the short message that can fit on a billboard. What's something that you'd offer to all the dads out there?
Don't take it too seriously and it's all going to be okay.
I like it. And when in your life do you feel the most love?
That's a tough one. When do I feel the most love? I don't know. Anybody's ever asked me that question, Tyler. Probably just the minor little things. You get a text, kids run up and give you a hug. I think just the acknowledgement that I'm here and not somewhere else in the world. Through the little things that you can do, a text, a call, a hug. Life's pretty complex. I'm pretty simple.
All right, and so I just have one last question, but before I do, let's rattle off a couple of the resources that we have to reach your companies: leatherbackgear.com, drinkhero.com. You got Instagram, which can.
Yep. You can find us both those brands are on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter,
with the website.
Email.
The website is beautiful. Even if you're just into branding and marketing. Mike's not kidding when he's talking about expertise in branding and marketing. It's a beautiful website and great online presence with your team behind you.
Appreciate that.
So everybody, I'd encourage to check that stuff out and Drink Hero. It's good coffee. So my last question, this recording may not last as long as the pyramids, but it could last for a very long time. And in the event that your kids and their kids and their kids, perpetually have a copy of this recording, what's a piece of advice or a message, an expression or something that you would share with every generation to come?
Piece of advice, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that the most complex problems always have the simplest solutions. Just nature of the game. Don't overthink it. It's real simple. They're very complicated. Make it simple. And it's everything I've ever done. The most complicated protection assignments, business building stuff, anything in between, it always has the simplest solutions when you start to look for it. Actually, when you stop looking for it, but when you think about it.
Yeah, sometimes just taking a step back makes all the difference.
Yeah. I don't know. Have you ever heard the theory Occam's razor? You ever heard of that?
The phrase, yes. The theory, I don't recall. Please tell me.
So it's basically that premise of what I just said. So usually when you got multiple things and you're trying to pin your way through something, the summation of it all, Tyler, it really ends up being that the easiest answer or the simplest answer is usually the right answer.
Awesome. I love it. Well, I appreciate your time so much, Mike. Thanks for being on the podcast.
No, man, I appreciate you. Glad you had me on. Loved it.